Talk a little NBA. A lot going on, by the way. The Last Dance continues. 2 more episodes. We'll have Mitch Lawrence on Monday to recap it. And, of course, we'll get some opinions from Keith as well. There is some Sixers news to get into. The NBA slowly talking about, working out and opening up facilities. What's that all going to look like? Let's bring in Keith, as always, at Keith Smith NBA. He joins us now on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back, Keith. What's up, my man?
Hey, guys. How are you?
All is well, and obviously there is some NBA news going on. Obviously, it seems to be a little interesting. They're going to make a decision, Friday? Maybe not a decision, but they're going to make maybe their first, statement on Friday about what the future could look like?
Yeah, that seems to be what we're targeting towards. Now, I was told that May 1st was a little bit of an arbitrary date where it was just kind of, 1st of May, that's when we'll talk again. And I think that was more to get Adam Silver from being asked on a daily basis. So, when are you going to have an update? When are you going to have an update? But I would say, maybe Friday, if nothing else, early next week, we'll have some more of an update on, hey, this is where we're proceeding. I wouldn't expect necessarily it to be this day the season restarts or the season's just canceled or whatever. It might be a little more vague than that, but we're looking forward to some update here this week.
What do you take from Steve Kerr yesterday that the Warriors are operating as if their season is over? It kind of insinuates that he thinks if they do come back, it's going to be a playoff-only format.
Yeah, I mean, what's kind of the running joke is they've been operating that way since Christmas. So it's, we'll see with them, just their season was such a mess. But, yeah, I think there's a chance. I think there's also a chance what they may do is try to cut it down. There's been some people who are in favor saying, hey, those last couple playoff spots, let's have some kind of little play-in tournament. So those teams that were in contention, we're only 3-4 games out, still have a chance to maybe get in here, and we'll see what it looks like. But, yeah, there seems to be a growing sentiment of, hey, if we really want to finish this thing up, have players, ready to go, but still be done by Labor Day, we probably need to think about doing this a little differently, and a little differently maybe we need to just jump right to the playoffs.
Yeah, we'll see when that ends up happening. We know baseball has kind of given a date of July 2nd as a hope for them, not a definitive, but more a hope. Would July 2nd be a welcome target date for the NBA? Is that something that you think's aggressive?
Yeah, I think that would be in line, maybe even potentially a little bit earlier, but it all depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking a single site, then that looks a little differently than we're going to open up our arenas, but no fans are allowed, or we're going to congregate in a handful of places. I think it's all going to depend on what that looks like. Baseball is, obviously clearly a very different sport. You're not right on top of each other, banging into each other all game long like you are in basketball. So I think it's just, a little bit of a different look. But what seems to be pretty consistent now is everyone seems to be under agreement. If this thing is going to restart, we're going to need 3 to 4 weeks to get players, make sure that they're in the right shape. So we're going out there. Trainers and doctors have been very consistent on, you run right out there and say, go, you're going to have soft tissue injuries and everything else, and nobody really wants that. So I think we're finally hitting a point where everybody's in agreement of the best way to work up to get back on the court.
Yeah, Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA, talking a little NBA as the NBA trying to get some things going. Now they're talking about opening some facilities, and I guess they've been getting some pushback on this.
Yeah, there's a little bit. Now, what's going on is there's a couple things. One, you have just the folks who feel like it's just too early. There's too many unknowns, and it's not time for this. The other piece is it's only about 50-50, maybe even less than that, of which cities and teams feel like they can reopen. Some of these states are not open. Massachusetts, for example, just extended their stay-at-home order until the middle of May. So what you're seeing on both sides is there are groups who are saying, hey, this is an unfair advantage. You can have the Atlanta Hawks in Atlanta in there going for 2 weeks, and then the Celtics only in there for, 2 weeks later. And that's something that the league said, hey, we're going to put a pause on this until at least May 8th. That's going to be one we'll readdress and see what that looks like. By then, hopefully we'll have more idea, or for these teams that states aren't reopened, we'll be able to work with those teams and get them to somewhere where they can do what they need to work or get exceptions or the like, because that seems to be another route that they're willing to go down.
All right, Keith Smith, let's get your take on this week's Last Dance in terms of the whole dynamic between the bad boy Pistons and the Bulls. We don't see that in today's game. These, that you need to get through that team. Like, that seems like it's kind of gone away with all these free agent players moving from team to team. Like, you don't see those rivals or those roadblocks, it seems like, anymore.
No, yeah, there's a big sense in the league where rivalries are. That's a thing for fans. That's not really a team thing anymore. These guys all grow up playing together. They all know each other, and like you said, they switch teams so often that it's hard to get that. Rivalries are. What is it? Familiarity breeds contempt. That's the truth. When you're seeing these teams play each other 4 times a year at the most in the regular season. Maybe you get another 4 to 7 games in the playoffs. That team plays, 4 times, and then they meet another 4 to 7 times in the playoffs over 2-3 years. That might be where it starts to come up. But then, just as it's getting going, some major player leaves and moves on to another team or something like that. So you just don't have the rivalries the way we used to in the league.
Yeah, and that that Pistons team kind of gets lost a lot because you had the Lakers, you had the Celtics, and then that next era of the Bulls. That Pistons little 2-year run kind of gets lost a little bit.
Yeah, it absolutely does. That's one of the forgotten great teams in the league, exactly for what you said. The 80s were Celtics-Lakers. It was almost a disappointment when it wasn't that matchup anywhere in there. And there was a couple Rockets teams that snuck in there. There was the 76ers team that actually won a championship. That gets a little forgotten. But, yeah, and then you went right from that. The Pistons had their little 2-year run, and then you went into the Bulls, the Rockets, the Bulls again, and then almost right into the Spurs and Lakers. And again, and everybody kind of forgets that Pistons team was really, really good in that they went through a lot of what the Bulls went through just with the Celtics. They could not get past Boston for a number of years, and then they finally did that. Their run was just a little shorter because Michael Jordan took over and dominated. Plus, that Pistons team was a lot older. And by the time they got knocked out by that Bulls team, they were pretty much at the end of that run anyway.
I want to get your take also on the Rodman stuff and whether or not, how would you see that Bulls team today with social media, with knowing that Rodman, knowing Jordan, knowing how everything kind of went down with that team, and then seeing what these teams have to go through today with the social media world we live in?
It'd be bananas. Could you imagine a guy disappearing for a couple of days? It would be, hey, the Bulls are playing, and Dennis Rodman's at the blackjack table with me here in Vegas, and the Bulls are in Cleveland or something like that. It'd be absolutely amazing to see what that would look like today, because the fans be running around. Everybody's got a camera on their phone, snapping pictures and everything else. And so a big reason why a lot of the players today, they stick to themselves. They stay home a little bit more. They don't go out, because every time they do go out, they end up on, somebody's Instagram feed or the like. So it would definitely be covered a little bit different. Now, the cool thing is back then there was a lot more openness and availability to the players as well. You can see that in some of the highlights. We have the locker room scrums and the like, but it's done in a lot more controlled fashion today than it is there. You also have a lot more people now. You have 1 million people around every single one of these guys, almost every game. Whereas back then, the Bulls, they talked about it. They had their 3 main beat writers, and that was where the guys that were with them every day, so those guys got all the good stuff.
Everest Lee is going to be the new GM of the Bulls. Obviously, he was with the Sixers. He came over here from Toronto and Washington. He was a part of the Colangelo era. He came here hired when Colangelo was hired. He was up for the GM job when Elton Brand ended up getting the job, and now he will head to the Chicago Bulls. What kind of impact do you foresee? Because a lot of people don't really know what some of these guys do, but Eversley's a pretty counted on guy in the Sixers organization.
Yeah, absolutely is. He's a big guy in a lot of their player development and scouting systems. He's somebody that they came to rely on. He's been highly thought of in a number of years. When you talk to people about who could be a GM in this league, his name was brought up back in his Toronto days, and that's when he was a little bit further down the rung there, because you had Masai Ujiri was there, you had Jeff Weltman, and then you had him down there under Colangelo, and that group was really well thought of. For all that Brian Colangelo went through and kind of the disgraceful end there in Philadelphia, this was a guy who was a very good team builder for a number of years with several different organizations. So his eye for talent, and Mark Eversley clearly learned from him. He's going to be someone. The Bulls have a lot of work to do. They've got a young roster. They've got to put the right pieces in place around them. So I think Mark Eversley comes in with Arturas Karnisovich, and they're going to rebuild that thing there pretty quickly.
All right, Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA, and of course the NBA on a pause right now. However, some of the sports, PGA, baseball, maybe the NBA, we at least can feel that they're moving slowly in some direction, and hopefully we can have better information by the time Keith's back next Wednesday, because the NBA is supposed to have maybe some sort of update. And then, of course, we have 2 more episodes of The Last Dance and a lot of other stuff happening. At Keith Smith NBA, Yahoo Sports, NBC Pro Basketball Talk, Real GM, Celtics blog. You can find Keith talking NBA just about everywhere. Thanks, pal.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'll stay safe.
You too. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.